Good morning and welcome to Wednesday. It is the final day of June. Can you believe that today will finish 6 months of this year already? I don't know how time keeps speeding up, it seems, but it's amazing to think that we have been 6 months in this. We're halfway through the year already. Let me ask you a question. The goals that you set out with at the beginning of the year, you're halfway through. How you doing? Where are you at? What you doing? Do you have some goals in place? Are you going to finish strong this year? It's tough. It is hard because it just seems like life gets away from us, right? Well, today we're not going to have a whiteboard kind of teaching today, but I do want to walk through Psalm 10 with us this morning. And feel free to put your comments, and I'll do my best to also answer those as you guys join in the conversation today. But Psalm 10 is, I think, such a real talk kind of psalm because it expresses some of the feelings that we have at times. It also, I think, summarizes some of the feelings of people that stand against God and Christianity. And then then the psalm just sums it all up in a belief that we have and can have. And I want to leverage that for a little bit of hope for us today. So when you begin in Psalm chapter 10, it starts off a little dreary. It starts off a little dark. Lord, why do you stand so far away? Why do you hide in times of trouble? Now, I wrote this down in my journal. Don't we feel like that sometimes? I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, let's have some real talk and let's be honest. I think there are times in our lives, as is evident by the old poem about walking on the beach with Jesus, that there are times that we don't seem to understand what God's up to. And not just because his ways are higher than our ways, according to Isaiah, but because we don't get it. We get so enamored with the moment that we don't have the ability to see beyond right now. And we think we do. We have planning retreats, we have calendaring meetings, we think we can see. But the reality is, when things go weird, when things go bad, when things go negative, when life breaks down or shuts down, as we've experienced for many months, we wonder to ourselves, where's God in all of this? Maybe your life has been wrecked lately, and we wonder, where's God in this? Or you look at troubles in Florida, and those families are at, where's God in all of this? Where is God? Why does it feel, and see, there we have to examine a little bit, don't we? Why does it feel like God is so far away? Well, and that can quickly turn into a looking around, and it seems apparent sometimes that we believe this sometimes, that that those who aren't following Jesus seem to have an easier way. Those that mock God seem to be having a better way of things, but we have to hold on to the long game. In the short run, you may not experience the same level of victory that others may, but it is the long game. It's the long run that we need to be considering. We need to be aware of this. In this psalm, the psalmist writes, and there's four things that he quotes the wicked on. The wicked is somebody who stands against God. There are four things that he quotes the wicked on. The first one is found in verse 4, and it says this: there is no accountability since God doesn't exist. This is what the wicked would say. That, you know what? The existence of God is up for debate. Now, for many of you, if not all of you that are watching, there may be some that are in seeking mode. But we would say, no, that's just wrong. I mean, God exists. He's always existed. We believe in the eternality of God, or the everlasting to everlasting nature of God, that he always has been. He wasn't created. He always will be and will never pass away. Meanwhile, humanity has a time of start and has a time of end. We have a birth date and we have a conception date and we have a death date. We find that, and you've heard the phrases, life is in the dash. And, you know, from the time that you set foot on the earth until the time that you are planted within it, what have you done? What have you accomplished? Well, the wicked, according to the Psalm, would say it doesn't really matter. You know, this whole idea of spirituality, according to them, would be it doesn't really matter. And that's why it says there's no accountability. Why? God doesn't exist. You live for you is something that many people believe. Unfortunately, I have a lot of church people that might believe that. Not just me. There are church people. I don't mean to misspeak that way. There are church people who believe this too. There are people, and that calls into all kinds of questions. Well, are they saved? Are they not saved? If you're saved, how can you believe that? If you're saved, how can you act like that? Maybe you're not saved. Are you backslidden? Are you not saved? And we have all kinds of gray areas of theological debate that we can get into another time. But those in this psalm, when it says the wicked, it would be those who are denying the existence of God. And so they live their life without any sense of accountability, because in their minds, God doesn't exist. And this can cause us turmoil in our life. This is some explanation as to why we sometimes feel, why is God so far away? Well, does he not care? And the devil then creates doubt in our mind. Does he not even exist? I mean, there's a belief system out there that says that might even suggest that there is a God who spun this thing, but then walked away and doesn't care. And that'll be point 3 here in just a second. But here, this first statement is there's just no belief that even God exists. Well, the second statement, it talks about being the captain of my own fate, and, you know, the master of my own fate and destiny. And I'm the captain of my ship. And so the wicked says to himself in verse 6, I will never be moved. From generation to generation without calamity. Well, come on now. And we all have our ups and we all have our downs. We all have our good years, our bad years. Sometimes it's good minutes and bad minutes. You know, we all have them. And so I'm really not sure how they could be so unaware and so self-deceived. But this is a belief that people have, that, you know what, there's no outside entity that can control anything. I choose what I want to do. Now, I'm not going to go to the other extreme and say that I have no choice. Some of my Reformed buddies might move in that direction, and we don't really have any choice in the matter. God has already pre-chosen or predestined us in some form or fashion, depending on the level of that you want to hold to. But in this psalm, the wicked are saying, look, I can do whatever I want to do. God doesn't even exist. The wicked are saying, hey, I'm not going to be moved. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And it's not going to matter. And you know what? Sometimes we see people that are living fearlessly concerning God, and we're trying to live faithfully, and there is a major difference in lifestyle, and we get envious and we get jealous of these things. Again, consider the long game. Yes, in the short run, the wicked will prosper. In the short run, many times Christianity will suffer and we will be oppressed. But it is the long game. It's the promise of the next life that we cling to. That's the hope we have. Our hope is not in the short run. Our hope is in the long run. So let the long run adjust your way of thinking and seeing and believing in your world today. Well, they go on through this psalm, and in verse 11, again, the wicked are saying to themselves, well, God is forgotten. He hides his face and he'll never see. In other words, it doesn't really matter what I do. Because even if they would say, even if they would accept that God exists, well, they don't think God even cares. That's what they think. That's what many might hold to even today. Some would say he doesn't even exist. And others would say, well, and that would be an atheist. And even those who would say that he does exist, he doesn't really care. It doesn't really affect my day-to-day living. That would be more agnostic and universalist. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Do whatever you want to do. Who cares? And you even have those that would believe that what you do in your physical body has no significance to your spiritual nature. Because if you have secured your spiritual nature by faith, that doesn't really matter. Yes, it does. Why do we have most of the New Testament except to tell us how we're supposed to behave now that we have been clothed in righteousness? If I've been clothed in righteousness, the language of Paul, then I need to live in righteousness. And so, but there are those who say it doesn't really matter. That, okay, let's say God does exist, the wicked would say. It doesn't really matter. He hides his face. And he doesn't see what's going on. And again, I think sometimes in our own world, in our own life, in the myopic nature of ourselves, this is how we feel. Because, hey, you know what? I'm trying to live right. I'm trying to do right. I'm trying to read and pray and go to church. I'm trying to raise my family right. And it's a struggle every day. But Joe over here doesn't seem to even matter to him. And look at how good things are with him. My friends, you don't always know what's going on in their heart. You don't know the thoughts running through their mind when they lay down at night. You don't have knowledge of that. Because we can all put a facade on. We can all put the mask on. I'm fine. It's all good. And yet we could be dying on the inside. So we need to recognize that there are those who believe that. But again, we're playing the long game. We're not playing the short game. And then finally in 13, the wicked person would say to himself that about God, that you will not demand an account. And this is talking about later on. And I find it interesting that we started with that he doesn't even exist to, well, if he does exist, he doesn't care. And if he does exist, and actually now they're recognizing his existence. So we've moved from doesn't exist to maybe exist. Well, what if he does? Okay, so he does exist, but he's not going to care in the end. There will be no final judgment. This is what many believe. The universalist approach today, the syncretism that is so prominent among younger people today, simply is saying that it doesn't really matter. Pick and choose what you want to believe. Pick and choose what makes you feel good. Pick and choose all of these things because you know what? In the end, we all go to heaven anyway. If all dogs go to heaven, well, we all go to heaven someday. No, you don't. And that's the unfortunate reality of this deception, is that many people might say, well, I believe in God, but, it doesn't really matter what I do because there's not going to be a judgment. I mean, Revelation, okay. I may believe in a lot of the figurative nature of Revelation, but the fact still remains there is a final judgment to come. Why do I say that? Because outside of Revelation, you find Paul writing about the final judgment. Outside of Revelation, you see Jesus talking about that there is a time, there will be a moment where this happens. And so we see scripture balancing itself and expressing to us and helping us understand there's going to come a judgment. There will be a time. Now, we believe in the biblical authority, and much of our world does not. And so we simply have to then, within ourselves, begin to understand and accept the long game in this. And I love the way the psalm ends, because he answers each of these four things. Listen to it. Okay, first of all, they said that, well, God doesn't exist. And then it says that, I'm the master of my own fate. I do what I want to. And it says, well, if he does exist, he doesn't care. And then the fourth thing that is sometimes said is that, okay, so what if he does exist? Nothing's going to happen in the end. How could a loving God send people to hell? This is a question I get a lot. You may get this a lot. How can a loving God even have a hell? And then the philosophers start taking over and try to recreate reality for us all. But in verses 16, 17, and 18, the psalmist sums it up and he answers for us these questions. And these are the hopes that we can have. This is the belief that we can have. And this will carry us through some of the dark times. It'll carry us through some of the difficult times. It'll carry us through those valleys. And so that we can see our way through. Listen to these words. The Lord is king forever and ever. The nations will perish from his land. Lord, you have heard the desire of the humble. You will strengthen their hearts. If he didn't care, why is he doing that? See, he does care. You will listen carefully. See, he doesn't hide his face. He listens carefully to us, doing justice for the fatherless and the oppressed, so that the men of the earth may terrify them no more. There will be an account. There's coming a day where there's going to be an account. My friends, God is everlasting to everlasting. You can take rest in that. God is aware. It is important how we act and behave, even though it doesn't seem to pay off in the short run. In the long run, it's going to, because there will come a day where every nation, tribe, tongue, and people stand before God, and some will be separated out and some will be allowed in. My friends, I hope that you'll be a part of the company of us that will go in to heaven because of our faith, our belief in what Jesus did, and how that gospel affects us each and every day. It wasn't a one-time thing. It's an all-the-time thing. And I pray that you understand the gospel of Jesus Christ, because it is the life-changing event of us all. You guys have a great day. Tomorrow's Dads with Coffee. We'd love to see you again tomorrow. Keith and I will be back tomorrow and sharing with you over some coffee. You guys have a great day, okay?